Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Keith Silva. The word praxis, P-R-A-X-I-S, is defined as when theory becomes practice. Praxis is the title bestowed upon the fall exhibition at UVM's Fleming Museum of Art. It's well named because it's an exhibition of recent work by UVM's studio art faculty. This show is the first ever group faculty exhibition organized by the Fleming since the university's studio art program began in 1924. We'll talk more about the art and artists in the exhibition in a minute, but first let me introduce our guest, Sonja Lunde. She is the Fleming Museum's director, born and raised in Vermont. She has a special relationship to the Fleming, as one of her grandfather's photographs was featured in an exhibition at the museum in the 1940s. Thank you for visiting with us today, Sonja.
Thank you for having me.
You started your tenure as the museum's director just about a year ago. Has it felt like a year?
It's been a whirlwind. It's been a pretty fast year.
It's been a fast year, a lot to catch up on.
Yes, a lot to get up to speed, a lot to learn, a lot of folks, not just at the museum, but of course we're part of a larger institution at University of Vermont. So it's been wonderful, and it's gone by in a blink, really.
Now you said that growing up in Vermont, you used to watch Across the Fence.
That's right. That's
so
right.
You've come a long way.
It's a little surreal being on the set that looks different, but is familiar to me.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Your career took you all around the country. What made you decide to return to Vermont?
You're correct. After college, I did leave New England and Vermont for many years and spent most of those out in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I worked at the University of Utah at their Fine Arts Museum for many years. But I've always been a Vermonter in my heart and always knew that when the opportunity came, I would try to make a move back home closer to family and friends. So
wonderful. What did you know about your grandfather's photo being exhibited? Was that something that that was a family lore that was talked about?
Sort of, kind of. That's right. I mean, me and my family have always kind of had a soft spot in our hearts for the Fleming because, as you mentioned, my grandfather was an amateur photographer back in the 30s and 40s. He was self-taught, had a dark room in his basement, and actually was included in an exhibition of amateur Vermont artists at the Fleming. We don't know the exact year, and I haven't been able to find the archives yet at the museum, but probably in the late 40s.
You said you grew up in Rutland County, right?
That's right, in the small town of Chittenden.
Oh, in Chittenden, okay. So coming from Rutland to Burlington must have been that was a big trip.
That was a big trip, and that definitely was a big trip. I had a great aunt who lived in Burlington. Of course, we used to do all of our back to school shopping in Burlington as a kid, and it certainly changed a lot, though, in the 25 or 30 years since I left.
Let's talk about Praxis. Recent work by UVM studio art faculty. How did this show come about?
When I arrived last fall and we got to work, myself and the staff at the museum, we really almost immediately started talking about what would it be like to put together a show of the entire cohort of our amazingly talented studio art faculty at UVM. Frankly, it was kind of a no-brainer, and we just ran from there.
How many faculty are featured in the show?
15.
15. It's not fair to ask you to play favorites, but are there themes or observations that you've noticed in the work?
Absolutely. We didn't put out a call for any specific response or theme for these artists to think around. So it's always interesting in group shows to see if there are sort of undercurrents running throughout the art, and that's certainly true in Praxis. We see lots of work that touches on themes of personal identity, social and racial justice, climate change, and artists are really grappling with those themes and thinking about them in a lot of different ways and across many different media as well.
Yeah, there's some really interesting sculptural pieces, one that we're seeing on the screen right now. And that's what the sort of studio art program is. It's not just paintings, it's not just photography, it's studio arts. Anything you can make in a studio, that's what's on display.
That's correct. Printmaking, drawing, sculpture, multimedia, film, ceramics, painting, photography. It's all represented in the School of the Arts at UVM.
What sort of public programming do you have for this fall?
Often the Fleming will plan programming series to complement the exhibitions and the collections that we have on view in the galleries, and this fall is no different. What we're trying to do is actually expand people's exposure to work being done by faculty across the School of the Arts, not just in the studio art program. So our programming will feature musical performances, dance performances by faculty in the other departments around the School of the Arts at UVM.
And that'll all take place at the Fleming?
That's correct.
Well, you've got a beautiful space in the marble court to have all those performances and things like that.
That's correct.
That sounds wonderful. We will put up a graphic at the end for phone numbers and websites where people can get that information. The Fleming is is a big part of campus and student life. It's right there on campus. You can't miss it. Talk about how this is unique to the Fleming as a museum and how that impacts your role as director.
Its location on campus?
The fact that it's on campus and it's part of, there are students that take classes at the Fleming.
That's right.
It's woven into the fabric of the university.
The Fleming, it's a really special thing to have an art museum on a college campus.
Right.
Percentage-wise, there aren't many colleges and universities that have museums, collecting institutions like the Fleming. So we have this opportunity and frankly a privilege to be an extension of the classroom for students at UVM and for faculty. And it's also a really unique place that can be a gateway to our neighboring communities around Burlington, Chittenden County, and across the state of Vermont as well.
It can be ways that people access the university.
Absolutely.
It might not be any other reason they have to be on campus.
It's free and open to the public. You don't have to enroll and pay tuition like you do for most other things at UVM.
Right.
So it's really unique and special in that way.
Well, speaking of special places, there's another exhibition visitors can check out, Landmarks, Paintings of Human-Altered Landscapes. What about this exhibition?
The Fleming has an amazing collection, a broad collection of over 24,000 objects, including many landscapes. And our curator of collections did a deep dive over the winter, exploring some of our 19th and 20th century landscapes that have depictions of human intervention in some way. So the title, Landmarks, as two words, is a little sort of play on that. To kind of evoke reflection on human interaction with natural spaces. So upstairs in the balcony that sort of rings our marble court in the center of the museum, visitors can view lots of really thought-provoking and lovely landscapes from the collection.
And this isn't just sort of pastoral images. You've got things from all times and
yes, that's true. Some are, I would say, typical depictions of rural Vermont agricultural landscapes, but we also have depictions of sort of more gritty industrial structures, quarries, factories, and things of that.
Wonderful. In the past few years, the Fleming has been going through a reckoning of its work as it decolonizes its collection to make the museum more anti-racist. Not as if you were racist before, but just to decolonize, as I said. Could you talk about how this process is going and help us understand what it means for the Fleming to become more responsive and relevant and inclusive?
Sure. The Fleming, like many Western, capital W, Western art institutions and collecting museums have typically privileged the work of white male artists and makers, not only through their collecting, but also in the works that are on view as exhibitions. Art is a lens for conversation, for self-reflection, and collecting museums really have a responsibility to elevate voices of artists and makers that have traditionally been marginalized or left out of those conversations. And as part of a university campus, we're trying to contribute to this goal of educating people to become, citizens of the world for the greater good as well. And so this is work that really is baked into everything we do at the museum moving forward.
And it's really important not only to highlight those artists that may, as you said, been marginalized, but for people who feel marginalized to see themselves reflected in the work when they go to a museum, because I think for a lot of folks, museums are museums and they're sort of standoffish and you can't have fun at the museum. You've got
That's
to be
right.
quiet and reflective. And if you don't see yourself in the work, that can make that relationship much less impactful.
You're right. And, everything we do at the Fleming, we want to forward this big goal of making the Fleming a welcoming place for everybody. I want, no matter who you are, I want people to come to the Fleming and be able to have an experience where they may see themselves reflected in the work on view, or they may just be inspired to have a conversation or think differently about something after they leave. I also want to really emphasize the point that you don't need to know anything about art to come to the Fleming and enjoy yourself at all. It really is it really is an open place that I hope everybody feels welcome and inspired to come to.
Well, we've always, Across the Fence has always felt welcome at the Fleming,
Good.
and so that's good to be there. And speaking of which, I think what's really important about what you've just talked about is a lot of times in these social justice kinds of things, people think, oh boy, they're doing this thing, why do they have to do this? This is the doing the work thing. This is where you just don't say, we're decolonizing or we're trying to bring more artists. You actually do the work, bring the artists, bring the people, and that's really important to show follow through in any of, sort of social justice or, diversity, equity, inclusion sort of thing.
Absolutely, and it's a mindset of work, because it's not that there's a destination and when we sort of reach, a certain number of benchmarks, we can declare ourselves finished with doing that work, and that's, why I sort of use this term, it's really baked in to the mindset of museum work and evolving museum practice moving forward to reflect the society that we really all want to live in. And hopefully contribute to that work.
Well, thank you very much, Sonja. For hours, collections, and exhibitions and events, visit the website address on the screen. And while you're there, think about signing up for the Fleming's free membership program, The Flamingos. And a thank you goes out to everyone here on the crew at WCAX for making this program possible. And I want to remind you that if you missed any portion of my conversation with Sonja, you can find us on YouTube or Facebook by searching Across the Fence. Take care.